and welcome to Building the Billion-Dollar Advisor Team. My name is Tina Karthagazer, and I'm a partner here at Advice to Advisors. We have advisors tuned in from across Canada and in the US, so a warm welcome to everyone that's joining us today. Just before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit about what we do. Advice to Advisors is an educational firm that trains, coaches, and mentors advisors of all tenure. We partner with advisors to turn practice management into revenue-generating activities. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Your speaker today is Daniel Collison. Dan's a CFP, a member of STEP, the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners. He's the former chair of the FP Research Committee and a board member of the Foundation for Financial Planning. He's taught personal finance in the MBA program at the Schulich School of Business for over 22 years. He's the author of 2 books, The Financial Advisor's Guide to Excellence and Building Bigger and Better. So just a few housekeeping items to cover. We'll be about an hour today. If you have any questions, just use the Q&A box you'll find at the bottom of the screen to ask questions. Any technical difficulty, use the chat and let me know. And with that, I'll hand the mic over to you, Dan.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, Tina. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you with us. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to get right into it. We're going to start with a couple, or actually 3 different case studies of producers. We're going to look at what the top 11 focuses of the billion-dollar team look like, and then we're going to say, well, how do you get there if you're not already there? So let's jump right into it. First of all, with Tracy and her team, and I'm not starting with a billion-dollar team. I want to show how you build towards it. So Tracy's been in the business now for over 15 years. She's been building a team. We started working with her back in 2019. At that time, she had $55 million of assets under management. By 2022, she had grown to 91. And as of last year, she was at almost 150 million. And what was really interesting this year, we were just talking on one of our sessions, and she had a good week. She had been away, but her team had been running the show. And she was really happy because she said, even despite the fact that she wasn't there, they had just done as much in that week as she had done previously in a year. So she's saying that now, and she built her business up primarily organically by growing it herself and with her team, but she's also taken on a few small businesses, retirees that have come to her looking for her as their succession plan. It was interesting. I actually wrote about Tracy in my last book, Building Bigger and Better, because she was meeting with her new clients from one existing older advisor. And as he willingly admitted, he was far more into the portfolio management in comparison to the asset management or financial planning. And as they met with clients, his original clients, her new clients, he would introduce Tracy and say to the clients, Tracy is the future of the business. And she was so happy to hear that. I'm totally happy to hear that because he actually recognized and he felt good about turning his clients over to Tracy. So that's a great thing to keep in mind as you're growing your business, especially if you're taking on new businesses through mergers, acquisitions, and the lot. Glenn and team, very interesting business. We started working with Glenn back in 2021. He was just over $500 million at the time, worked for a big brokerage firm. And it was interesting because he started really ramping it up as we were going along. But when I first met Glenn, I asked Glenn, who's your ideal client? And he said, well, everybody with 2 million and above. And I said, well, geez, that's a tough one to actually market out there. Most people don't walk around with t-shirts saying I've got over 2 million to invest. So I started asking about his clients. I said, what's your number one client do? What's your biggest client do? Business owner. Number 2, well, brother of number 1, and he's also a business owner. Number 3, number 4, number 5, all business owners. But Glenn had never actually looked at his clientele and said, okay, this is who my ideal clients were. He loves working with them. And even as he said just recently, when I said, okay, how do you think you've been doing this, these leaps and bounds? And now I got to tell you, he has not taken on a new business. There's no mergers and acquisitions, although the brokerage has been referring clients to him of recent. significant. But as of last year, he brought in over 120 million last year alone. And when I said, what do you put this all down to, Glenn? He said, well, I got to tell you, I did it your way. It's all been through introductions. And I had to modestly admit that, well, it's not my way. It's one of the four top methodologies of top producers, of which Glenn obviously is, but targeted introductions. So when we talked about how he was going to really ramp up the business, do it fast, it was all through getting to other business owners through his existing business owners with these targeted introductions, and he's done it in an absolute stellar way. Spencer, James, and team, fabulous team. They work with the medical profession, but when we first started working together, again at about $500 million, and they started growing till last year, they went over the $1 billion mark. And as I was talking just to Spencer, and he said, yeah, we don't see any end to this. They had actually moved firms just prior to 2022. And he said, we're seeing more money come to us. We're seeing more referrals, more introductions, but there's no end to this. And we're really ramping this up, which was just phenomenal to see. And they've got a fabulous team they have for years. But what is it that consumers of wealth management want from you, from the industry itself? Well, the research tells us they want it all. They want holistic advice. Most of them don't know to call it holistic advice, but they want it. And they want it brought primarily by one individual. They want one contact person, but they don't believe you can do it all. So in reality, they want you to bring them all the expertise that you can and that they need. Knowing that, we're going to get into this and look at what the top 11 focuses of those that are building towards or already achieved the $1 billion business. I'm just going to move back to actually my first book. And the first book came out in 2015, The Financial Advisor's Guide to Excellence. And the whole premise of the book was that advisors, as they get into the business, they start recognizing that they've got to take on so many different roles. Makes it a very, very challenging business. Probably one of the reasons that we see over an 80% failure rate in the first 5 years of new entrants into our industry. But in the Financial Advisor's Guide, I break it down to 3 primary roles that every advisor is working, usually on their own in the beginning, but they can actually end up delegating some of these roles away. So right off the bat, there's the technician. That's you, the financial advisor, the actual technical, what you do as an investment advisor, an insurance advisor, a financial planner, whatever your role is, the technical work itself. But then there's the strategic manager. How are you going to build the business? What's the marketing? What's the prospecting? What's the compliance? What is, you're doing it all in the beginning. At least you were when you started your own business. Finally, the visionary. We all, very shortly after getting into the industry, start thinking, where am I taking this business? And in the beginning, it's a lot of hit and miss, but that visionary role is, where am I going? And what we've always said, and what I said in this book was, from the very beginning, start as you mean to end. In other words, things are definitely going to change. They're going to change internally with you, with your business, with your team. They're going to change externally with what's happening in the industry, with the regulators and such. But you've got to have a vision, and you've got to work towards that vision. And again, that's just one more of those roles. But ultimately, as you grow the business, you'll start to see, as you bring more people on, as you onboard more expertise, you're going to start splitting out and delegating some of these roles to others. And in fact, as the technician, the financial advisor, I've actually seen a number of advisors move right out of the financial advisor role. They might stay licensed, but they move more into the strategic manager or even the visionary role later on in their careers. So I want to keep that in mind as we're going through this webinar. So right off the bat, what we see with the top producers, those that really go big, that start towards and get to the $1 billion team, they work with high net worth individuals. And when I talk high net worth, This really is primarily upper middle class. These are not the billionaires themselves, but they tend to be millionaires, multimillionaires, 100 million. But any advisor that works with this type of individual has the opportunity to work with these high net worth and to grow that billion-dollar business. So what we do know through the research right throughout North America, professionals, entrepreneurial, whether it's the legal, the medical, engineering, whatever it is, but professionals, entrepreneurial professionals, small to mid-sized business owners have the money. And some of you might have read the book from the 1990s, The Millionaire Next Door, that talks all about that hidden millionaire business owner. Corporate executives and senior managers, they hit the target. Highly skilled tech workers, they're making a lot of money and have a lot of needs. And then retirees, but specifically retirees to all of these individuals. My ideal client when I was an advisor, financial planner, was retirees. In fact, the money was there, the need was there. They were a very quick turnaround in reality. The one I have left off of this group is real estate investors. And I've talked to a number of advisors, some of them going after these real estate advisors. Real estate investors, I've yet to see any financial advisor, and I'm not saying there are none, but I haven't met them, that have actually made a niche out of real estate investors for their practice. So I've left them off the list, but these are the types of individuals that have the money, they have the needs. And when you find who you like to work with, and as long as you've got the potential to connect with these people, they can make for an ideal client. Here's the thing. This is the number one block for most advisors, because most advisors are working with a very limited belief, a scarcity belief, that if they limit themselves to, in fact, the type of person that they're going to work with, that they'll have less opportunity, and is just not the reality, in fact. So focus, everything gets easier, and opportunities get bigger in reality. Number two, build a multidisciplinary team. And the earlier you can get into a team mode, and here's the thing, when you're newer in the business, you don't need to bring on full-time people onto your team. You can have part-time, you can have virtual team members, as it were. Things are changing quickly, opportunities are there. But we see all the types of people that we can, and the disciplines and the expertise that we can and ultimately should be looking to bring on. Everybody starts with the administrator. But again, we're going to bring on other advisors, potentially junior advisors, associates, partners. Generational advisors are the ones, I think this is the up and coming opportunity for a lot of older boomer or Gen X advisors. As we get older, we start to lose the opportunity to work with the younger individuals. And when I'm talking young, I'm talking the children and the grandchildren of your great clients. You do want to hold on to those generational type of clientele. You want to get them, because that really is working the family tree, and that's going to maintain the wealth of those families for you and your business. We again are going to have a strategic manager, whether it's us. Mostly I see with the billion-dollar teams that actually advisors bring on a manager to actually do the practice management. And then we can get into the marketing, prospecting, rainmaker. That tends to hold true with the original advisors. However, some do and have the capability of passing it on. Probably one of the biggest failure we've seen over the years is advisors hiring on junior or associate advisors, young advisors, newer advisors, assuming they know how to market and prospect. And the reality is they're newer, they're younger, they haven't done it before, they have to learn, or it's just not in their makeup. So recognizing this and being able to bring these people on, the right type of person on, whether they're going to be into the marketing or prospecting, or if not, they're in some other ancillary role. And finally, that visionary almost always is exclusive to the original advisor. I say almost always because it's not always the case, but for the most part, that original advisor is the visionary. They see where they want to take their business, and they're going to run with that. Here's what's really interesting as you build a team, because building a team is not easy. It doesn't come natural to most of us. But what the research tells us is that there are three top attributes to being a great leader, and that's what you have to become, or you have to bring someone on to lead the team in itself. But what we do know is that that leader has to be highly social in nature. Number one, they have to be able to enable others. They have to be able to build that team and to delegate. I've seen a lot of advisors fail at this. They haven't been willing to hand over responsibilities. They haven't been able to delegate, and that is hugely limiting. If you can't delegate, if you can't enable others, first of all, most people want to grow. So when you bring someone onto your team, you've got to show them, you've got to ask them, what do they see their future as? What would they like to see the opportunities unfold in front of them? You've got to show them a bigger and better future, and you've got to be able to work with that reality. Socially adaptable. Again, if you're in the business, the tendency is you are socially adaptable, but recognizing as a leader how much importance has to go into this role. So again, highly social in nature as a leader. And when you get into the multidisciplinary team, because you're growing, expanding, going beyond that billion-dollar level, you've got to have these capabilities or hire individuals who have these capabilities onto the team to run with that as is necessary. Strategic partnerships and alliances. I've been talking about this for decades. This is what changed my business for me. Absolutely dramatically changed my business many, many years ago, talking to a top producer, Ian, and he drew this out in front of me. He didn't call it a personal CFO model. He said it was quarterbacking. It was a more rudimentary model, but he said, you've got to take control of the personal finances for individuals, and you've got to have the people to support you, the experts to support you. And when I recognized that and I could show this to my prospective clients and even existing clients, the confidence that built in me and then in them was dramatic. We've taken it a little further. We use the concept of you Inc., you Incorporated. It comes from finance professor Moshe Milevsky. If you haven't read any Moshe Milevsky, he's one of the most written academics in the world on personal finances. And he says consumers really need to treat themselves like a corporation. Corporations are very efficient, they're very effective. And if they would only treat their personal finances like a corporation, they could do so much better. He called it You Inc. So we took that You Inc., You Incorporated, and we said, okay, our clients have to be the CEO of You Inc. Our job is to act as their personal CFO, and our job is twofold. Number one, we need to qualify and quantify their goals. Qualify, that's the who, what, where, when, why of their financial goals. Quantify, that's time and money. The moment you can have time, how much time do we have to achieve these goals? How much money do we need to achieve for these goals come to reality? Now we have the math. We have the capabilities mathematically of figuring anything out. Use our calculators. Of course, you're going to be using financial software, but we can do that. That's number one. The second aspect of our business is acting as the conduit to all the other experts that they're going to need in their personal wealth, in their personal financial wealth. And in fact, this is what makes us wealth managers. When we can have these professionals, these experts in our back pocket, or in fact, work with our clients' existing experts, but whenever they need, and based on who your ideal client is, have the experts that are necessary to take care of their wealth, to take care of them in a holistic way. And a great saying from a top producer that I met many years ago here would say, once he onboarded a new client, he would look them in the face and just say something like, Tina, it's great to have you on board with us. Looking forward to working with you. I just need you to know that if you ever have a question and it's got a dollar sign in front of it, just give me a call. Doesn't matter what, how small it is, how large it is, give me a call. We'll get you the answer in 24 to 48 hours. And that is giving an assurance to the clients that they've got a partner, a financial partner to work with. Now, obviously, you've got to hold to it. But this personal CFO model, will knock out the vast majority of your competition. You can, however, take it to what's becoming now the norm for high net and ultra high net worth clientele, which is the family office model. More realistically, the multi-family office model. And really, it's just taking that personal CFO model to a new level. So, as I say, for most individuals that are setting up the family office, they are multifamily. Family offices started hundreds of years ago in Europe, came into the States, and really they were focused on running the ultra rich family's wealth. Over the decades, especially the last three probably decades, advisors have been moving into the role of setting up these multifamily offices where they're offering a lot of the services that we still offer or have offered, but they're going beyond it, that holistic, to the point where they've even offered the concierge services. So it's a one-stop for the families that you're working with, taking care of every aspect of their lives because they're just too busy. The ultra rich are always too busy to take care of these things. Even the ultra high net worth and the high net worth, if you can provide this for them. Now, with the family office, there's a tendency to have more of the experts in-house, the lawyers, the attorneys, the accountants, and such. But we're seeing more and more of these multifamily offices set up where they're also, much like the personal CFO, using external experts, so they don't have them on the payroll. They just have them on speed dial, as it were, and they can call on them anytime for their clients, and they'll benefit them, and they work as a team to benefit their clients. The next important aspect of the billion-dollar team is you've got to understand yourself. You have to understand who it is you're servicing, why you're servicing, how, what you're providing for them. So branding, marketing, prospecting. Probably the biggest problem with advisors is not recognizing the difference between marketing and prospecting. We say marketing is where you're putting yourself out to your marketplace, your ideal client marketplace, so that they understand what you do, how you do it, why you do it. Importantly, who you do it for. So marketing to your ideal client. That's how you set up your brand. And then prospecting is the actual activity of getting in front, face to face, possibly virtual, and talking to the individuals, seeing if your services align with what they need, and finally meeting with them and going through discovery to find out what it is they actually need. So your ideal client, you're putting out what your business structure, whether it's the personal CFO model, the family office model, but again, highlighting that unique value proposition, which is one of the biggest failures of most advisors as they're trying to grow their business, not recognizing how that UVP really does become core to their marketing and their branding, which they then take out on the road, as it were, to prospecting for themselves. All the different marketing mediums, and then finally the prospecting dashboard. We do know the top 4 methodologies that top producers work with: conscious referability, targeted introductions, networking, and building a fabulous network that also services the same type of clientele, and finally getting out to the public en masse through seminars, webinars, and workshops. I know, Tina, you talk a lot on the marketing, the media side. If you want to
Yeah,
jump in here.
sure. And when I'm looking at this diagram here, Dan, I mean, I see YouTube, I see Instagram, I see Facebook. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed with so many different social platforms nowadays. But I think one of the best ways to go about it is to look at where your ideal client is hanging out, right? So you could look at this from a demographic side of things. For example, TikTok. TikTok, there mainly are female users. There's more female users than male, and the age group tends to be about 18 to 25 years old using that platform. Instagram, you're looking at an age group somewhere in between 18 to 45, for example. So if you looked at it from the demographic point of view, where do you want to spend your time? Facebook, you see a lot of Gen X, you see a lot of boomers using Facebook. If you ask my kids if they've ever been on Facebook, they would not have ever They do not have a profile. They don't have Facebook. So I think at the end of the day, it's where are they hanging out? Where are they spending their time? One of the platforms that I think is a great one for advisors is YouTube. You're seeing more male users on YouTube, the largest demographic being between 25 and 35 years of age. The thing about YouTube and some of these other platforms as well is you get a real sense of the analytics, right? So you can see how your videos are doing. You can see who's watching them, if they're staying from the beginning to the end, if they're male, they're female, their age groups. There's so much data on there to make sure that you're spending time in the right platforms too.
Perfect. Okay. So next is the client experience and relationship management, which is so critical to not just building the business, but maintaining the business, because certainly we've got to grow it, but there's little value in growing when you can't actually maintain who you've brought on board. So the client experience, what's it look like? And it starts from the very beginning, but certainly initial and discovery meetings are setting you up. The client communications process. The biggest thing that we see is those that ask the best questions tend to do the best. And we do know that communications, the research tells us that if you ask great questions, people tend to trust you more. They trust you quicker when you ask great questions. And there's some number of reasons for that. But one of the big ones is you're not talking as much, they are. And when you're asking great questions, we call them disturb and motivate questions. Disturb them to what they don't know and motivate them to take action. So if you can ask great questions, first of all, they start to understand that you have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and hopefully at this point, a lot of wisdom to ask such questions. And it gives them comfort in knowing that you know what you're talking about by asking questions versus going in and doing a full diatribe on what you do know and what you deliver and such. So asking questions, but having a communication process set up and onboarding client servicing. Here's a big one, client servicing, client segmentation. A lot of advisors have challenges with this, and it's really got to be refined as you're building up towards the billion-dollar business. But servicing plan, we always say your servicing plan should be your base level plan, what we would say the lowest range of clients are going to receive. What are the services they're getting? And then segmentation allows you to offer more services as your clients are paying you more, whether it's by billable hours, whether it's commission-based, whatever, fee for service. However, they're paying you more. And some advisors will say, no, I don't believe in giving someone more. Well, that's kind of like saying, I don't believe in capitalism. If you're paying for more, why shouldn't you get more? So client segmentation allows that to happen, and it can be seamless and it can be invisible, but you set your servicing plan. And this is what I say to advisors who are challenged by the segmentation aspect. If your servicing plan is so good that it's beating what your competition is offering. So your lowest tiered on a financial basis, client is getting better than what they get from the competition. Segmentation becomes easy and it makes sense because, again, they're paying for services, and if they're paying more, why shouldn't they get more? Finally, the referral and introduction plan, making sure as you onboard new clients that you know how you're going to meet more people like them through them, which comes through referrals, comes through targeted introductions, and the lot. Our next step is performance metrics, data-driven decision makers. I know, Tina, this falls right into your area of expertise and something you really enjoy delving into. So I'll turn that over to you.
And you're right, Dan. I really do love looking at the data. And I think at the end of the day, there's just so much data and analytics available to us nowadays that we're able to make better decisions on where to spend our time, where to spend our money. The challenge is for advisors and for teams is to be able to carve out time to really look at the data and spend time thinking about whether or not some of these efforts are working or they're not. When we look at client satisfaction, I think the first thing that comes to mind is surveys and feedback forms. And that's great, but I would caution advisors to not over survey. I know I feel like I'm getting so many surveys. If I go to Starbucks and I use my app, an hour later I've got how did we do? So I think that one of the better ways really is just to ask, and in the communications and when you're in meetings with them, just doing the regular check-ins. How are we doing? I think you can add the surveys and the feedback forms, but you have to be very strategic and just be mindful that people are being over surveyed. When we look at the advisor, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
We've also seen where advisors and their teams are setting up boards, as it were, advisory boards of some of their top clients, and they find out if it's okay, can they bring these people together, whether it's live or virtual, but ask them specific questions, do it on a regular basis, not too regular because back here being over surveyed, but getting the feel of what the clients are liking and not liking, what they'd like to see more of, what they'd like to see less. By going to this advisory board, a lot of top producers are kind of limiting how much surveying they're putting out there. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very true, Dan. When we look at the advisor performance metrics, this is all about understanding where you are now and where you want to be. And I'm sure you could talk to this, Dan, but this is a big part of our coaching program when we onboard new clients is where you are and where you want to be, and being able to track those metrics throughout the program. When we look at goal achievement, these are both personal and business goals. For example, maybe you want to grow your client base, but I think it's also important to set some personal goals as well. So maybe one of your personal goals is spending more time with family, or being able to, attend more of your child's soccer games and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's really about finding balance. With the referral rates, obviously it's important to be tracking these. There's nothing new there. That's been going on for a long time. With personal development, this is all about investing in yourself. So again, we can be looking at, maybe you want to be attending more workshops and more conferences. You want to learn a new skill. Maybe you want to find a mentor. But personal development can also take its own path, and maybe, health and wellness. For example, this year, me and my daughter are going to be embarking in a challenging effort to do a Tough Mudder together in May. So we're going to be working on, chipping away at that goal and getting fit and doing something together. And I think at the end of the day, achieving these personal goals is going to make us happier, more productive. It's just a more balanced approach. When it comes to the time management and productivity, being able to prioritize your tasks, setting boundaries, and being able to track those metrics as well. And when it comes to the industry compliance and standards, staying informed about regulations is essential. Again, being able to track that and make decisions moving forward.
Yeah, the one thing I would say here as well is, and we recognize it in our coaching of advisors, when we see advisor clients that actually set goals for their personal and their business development, they've been doing it. In other words, they're students of the business. They're always focused. They're always learning. They've got that growth mindset. These are the individuals that we can readily say, yeah, this is either a top producer or a top producer to be, because they're already doing it. A lot of advisors have to learn about this, but if you're a student of the business, everything gets easier for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Back to you on this, Tina, because again, technology and automation is your bailiwick.
Yes, I love this. And this picture here is a bit of a strange picture, but I'll just give you some context here. So one of Dan and I's favorite restaurants, the sushi restaurant, where when you walk in, you're greeted by a robot hostess and their servers essentially. But the concept really is that it frees up time to do what they do best, which is create awesome, awesome sushi. It's a very, very good restaurant. So they're using automation and freeing up their time so that their chefs can really craft a beautiful product. And that's what this is all about, right? It's all about freeing up time and using your time smart. So with the client onboarding and document management software, this is, we're talking about DocuSign here. It's all about speeding up the onboarding time, reducing paperwork. I mean, the back and forth of emails, those things they're just a headache and a nightmare for clients. So I
And
know that a lot
Tina,
of our,
I
yes.
know I know advisors are aware of most of this, and if they're not working with it already, they know they've got to get there. But can you talk to chatbots and AI, because that obviously is the hot topic.
Hmm. Yes. So chatbots, what those are, if you can imagine, maybe a prospect logs on your website and they've asked a question about estate planning. A chat box being enabled allows there to be a very basic conversation, so that you can then take that lead and develop that into a meeting or take that to the next step. But it's freeing up your team's time using a bot. So something like that, I mean, so many of these websites and even these social platforms have bots that you can enable, and it just saves on the initial contact. With AI, I mean, there's just so much you can be doing with it to free up administrative tasks. I know that Zoom has some AI built into it now, where if you're having a client meeting, it'll produce meeting notes for you. It'll have meeting summaries. We're talking about saving so much time on creating notes and summaries during your client meetings. So AI, ChatGPT, it's not going anywhere. So I would say absolutely embrace it. If you can find somebody on your team that enjoys this, and is knowledgeable in technology, they would probably be the go-to person to really dig in and to do some training with that.
And that's the critical part when we're talking about building teams. It's making sure that the right person is running with the right tasks, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and that same person who is a natural with technology and is really enjoying that part of the work, that might be somebody that's going to manage your client communication and your marketing software. So I know a lot of advisors are using Advisor Stream, Constant Contact, MailChimp. That person might be in charge of that as well. I mean, it sort of blends in well together. One thing I would say is when you're looking at the client communications, again, I would segment and I would really start to look at the demographics and the interests of your database. Being able to send one message out or one newsletter out to everyone is really not going to appeal, and the receiver is not going to find the value. So you could look at things like the interests, maybe they like to travel, or they're approaching retirement. And so you're going to start to gear the communications around what your clients want to see and what they want to read. And then in the end of that, we can go back to the analytics. The beautiful part about a lot of these softwares, like, for example, Constant Contact, is that you do see the analytics. So again, to revisit the analytics and look at the open rates, who's opening your newsletters, who's opening messages from you, who are your fans, who are constantly, looking at the material that you send. What are the click-through rates on every link that you send? Maybe it's an article or it's an invitation to an event. Who's clicking where? It's going to tell you a lot about what your clients want to see and what they're interested in.
Yeah, and we talk about the ideal client and how it makes everything about your business easier. And that is one area when you know a cohort so well. And we say advice to advisors that, if there's one thing you want to be a student on, it's your ideal client. In fact, you should be doing a PhD on your ideal client. You should know that cohort so well, better than your competition, because it does make everything easier in this communications. So we know if we're dealing with retirees, that cohort will have certain interests. If we're dealing with the medical profession, they'll have certain interests. So as you said, rather than everything generic, we can start to refine our communications. And then what we see with the best of the best advisors with great teams, they'll have someone who's who's actually collecting the data on specific personal interests from every individual client or client family so that you can even refine the communications, the information, the knowledge, the education more so. True?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the one other area here that I want to mention for the teams that are on today is the task management and the project management tools. This is for teams. So this is, holding people accountable, where you are in a certain project, checklists, completion. I mean, when you have a team, you need to be able to communicate well together on where you are with certain projects. I know one of the softwares that I've seen advisor teams use is Trello. And it's so that everybody can contribute and be a part of where they are in projects. And that's super, super helpful when you have 3, 4, 5 members in a team.
Yeah, and that rolls over very nicely and segues right into the regulatory compliance and risk management side of the business. Again, an area that I don't know if you're in love with it, but at least you deal with it a lot.
Yeah, and again, Dan, it would be, to delegate that person on your team to be the compliance manager, to be that person that's going through the additional training and getting more tools so that they can really focus on what they do well and what their role is. Having a playbook and having processes. Again, I mean, this is when you're building teams is, what is my role? What is the process and the playbook here when it comes to, reviewing of the compliance and the review meetings. So I feel like this is, this isn't going anywhere, and you're going to see this being managed a lot on the firm level, but certainly having a person who owns that role
Yeah,
would
and
be
what
great.
we've seen with the best of the best teams is they look at compliance in a very different way than the average advisor. They take it as a way to optimize their business practices in every aspect. So if something comes down the pipe that's new, they don't look at it as another task, more work. They look at it as how does this benefit our firm, our practice? How does it benefit our clients? So it's not always an easy spin, but they always do it. So the compliance isn't a nasty bit of the business that they don't want to deal with. It becomes part of their risk management process that they're going to work with to better their business, to better their client offering.
Absolutely.
Now, creating your continuity and succession, this is what's left far too long by most advisors. But as businesses get bigger, it's got to be dealt with. But here's the difference between those individuals that really are driving towards the billion-dollar team and those that aren't or just can't get their heads around this. They don't look at succession planning as the end. They look at it as an opportunity. So again, when we look at that technician, strategic manager, visionary, this is part of what the visionary is working on within the team, whether it's the advisor or a practice manager within the team. But they're looking at, okay, ultimately, like all businesses, like all CEOs, someone new is going to be taking over. And in fact, too often advisors are saying, it's either retirement or death. Well, yes and no, but there's a lot of things that happen along the way. And again, the reality is we do know that clients feel better when they know there's a succession plan in place, when they know somebody can step up at any moment. Doesn't mean you've been hit by the bus, doesn't mean you just retired yesterday. It's you're away on vacation with the family, you're doing this and that. Somebody else can step into your role if necessary, or at least take care of so many of the things that your clients are going to need. So right off the bat, we say, with the succession planning, establish your legacy goal. It's very much like estate planning for clients. What do you want to see out of this? You spent your whole life building up wealth. What legacy do you want to see that you've left behind? What do you want to be remembered for? Value your practice. We could be 20 years away from retirement, but we could still say, I want the value of my business to be at XY by the time I sell my business. Who are your successors? Are they internal? Are they external? And that's a really important decision to make. what we have seen, I can tell you, is those advisors that build internal strength within their teams and create internal successors, whether it's one individual that's going to take the helm or it's multiple, they have the easiest succession plans, and they tend to come to fruition so much better. And it just makes everything easier as well. Not only that, the clients are already living in comfort with this team, so there's virtually no change for them. If, however, you're taking on an external successor, you've got to prepare your practice to ensure that you look good, that you're getting the value. So when you do come to close the deal, that you're getting top dollar, you're getting the equity out, your sweat equity, as it were, so that you can sell the business. And then there's got to be that client communication process that everybody is comfortable with what's happening. They see it long in advance, that there's no surprises. Surprises are what kill client comfort, client trust, and that's the last thing we want to see during succession. So having a process to run with and live by. And of course, scaling through mergers and acquisitions, so many advisors say, yeah, I'm out looking for new businesses to buy, yet they haven't prepared themselves for that activity or even prepared their businesses so that they actually show up strong. And that's one of the critical messages that we get from those that have already done this. They bought up other practices, and the reason they're able to, and what's really interesting, on Glenn's story I showed at the beginning, as he started nearing the 800, 900 million mark with his business, he was telling me that he had two other advisors, senior advisors, both looking to retire within the next 5 years, that had come to him for their succession plan because they saw the type of business he was doing, the quality of the clientele, that they had chosen him. They want him to take over the business. Obviously, he's got to do his due diligence to make sure that their businesses fit with his. And again, it's also much like Tracy, that first case study we looked at, making sure that those clients fit in with your clients, or that it's almost a separate entity to the existing clientele, maybe a different ideal client. You might even be bringing on a new advisor to run that part of the business, or one of your existing associate, junior, partner advisors are going to run that side. One advisor worked with for a number of years. His ideal client was the retiree. He just absolutely loved getting his hands dirty inside the business workings and dealing with the opcos, the holdcos, the trusts that had to be established for all of this. So as clients retired, he actually brought on an advisor who dealt with retirees, and she moved into the retirement specialist role so that those business owners, after everything was settled for them in their retirement, she took over their planning for them while Ian continued to do what he loved to do best, which is working with active business owners. So all the prep work that has to go into your business before you can actually get out there and look to purchase business. Too many advisors don't even think about this, that those businesses that are selling, if they're quality businesses, they're looking at who they're selling to, because again, they're looking at their legacy. They're looking at their clientele. A lot of them are family members, friends, or they've become friends. So they partnered with these people, and they're not going to turn them over to just any advisor. So, showing up strong with your business, being able to show, but on the flip side, doing your due diligence about the businesses that you're looking to take on. And if people are coming to you, what kind of businesses do they have? Does it make sense? And that's where having both legal and accounting advice, professional quality advice that works in this space. And there's a lot of these individual experts that work specifically with financial advisors as well. And they'll help actually close the deal. Finally, wrapping this up, here's the big one that we realize. Anyone that started on this movement towards the $1 billion, doesn't matter if you're at 50 million, 100 million, but if you see yourself growing, continuously growing, and again, a lot of advisors that have reached the billion level never anticipated doing so. I know when I got into the business 3 decades ago, Nobody had $1 billion. Nobody managed that kind of money as an advisor. And yet it's becoming more the norm throughout North America. Uh, but you have to believe in it. And those that believe in it actually have a growth mindset. Here's the thing. You can never let that wane. You must always feed that growth mindset. So you're always going to be a student of the business. Anytime there's failure, you're looking at what opportunities can you learn from them. Emotional intelligence, dealing with self-awareness and other awareness, critical when you're building a team, when you're building a clientele on both sides. Without emotional intelligence, something's going to blow up, and we've seen that happen far too often. Being curious allows you to open your mind and see what you might not have seen, where the opportunities will be, where the challenges will be. And here's the thing, you've got to keep doing what you love to do. And sometimes change can actually solidify that love. So you might have an ideal client of one type at this point in your business, and it could evolve to something else. I know individuals who have done retirement planning, but they really love the entrepreneurial space, and they'll gravitate because if they can do retirement planning, you can take some of that information, that knowledge, that wisdom, move it over to the entrepreneurial space and just keep going deeper and deeper. But find what you love to do. And that also goes back to that pyramid, the technician, the strategic manager, the visionary. Not every financial advisor will remain in that role. Sometimes they'll remove themselves from the activity of dealing with clients and move up to the strategic manager or even the visionary role. Finally, being tenacious. You've got to have grit. That's that perseverance, passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Nobody builds a billion-dollar business and a billion-dollar team without this passion and perseverance for long-term goals. And finally, you've got to inspire others, and you've got to be inspired by others. So those that build businesses and build teams like this, they look to others that have already done it. That inspires them, and they can in turn turn around, inspire their clientele, inspire their team members, and keep working it so that you've got the opportunity not just to build the business, but build where you're going, build your role in the business, build it bigger and better. In fact, whether you remain as the technician, you move towards the strategic manager position, or you take the helm as the visionary. That's that chairman of the board type of role where you're helping the CEO, you're helping the COO, CFO, you're helping everybody else. You're mapping out visions. You're looking at what can happen, what's possible into the future. So I know we're coming close to our hour, so where do you go from here? Well, for any of you that are interested and you thought, yeah, I want to be there, I want to grow, I'm at 100 million now, I'm at 500 million, I want to get there. That's what we do at Advice to Advisors. We help advisors grow their businesses, and we do it in a lot of different ways, but primarily we help with coaching, and we help partner with advisors so that they can build teams that can build better and bigger businesses. So at our level one, maybe you're interested in talking about this, seeing what your business looks like. So if you just want to sit down for an hour virtually, it's $500 to say, okay, here's what my business looks like, and you'll fill out a form, send it to us so that we've got your background about your business. You send that to us, and then we set a time to talk about what your business looks like now and what it could look like in the future. If you want to take it further, you already know that you've got the need for coaching, that you could use some help, and that you could use tools. We've got 6 sessions we can run through, and it can be over 6 months. It could be in shorter time, depending on where you are in the business, and that's $6,000 for those 6 sessions. Finally, our full-on coaching is 12 sessions usually over 12 months, but not always. Sometimes we are meeting a few times within the first 1 or 2 months, but we're coaching on a regular basis, 12 sessions. As I said, you've got access to our A to A Academy. That's where Tina staffs all of our information, our tools and such with that. And if you're doing webinars and workshops and things like that, we can do co-hosted webinars as well if that's of interest, or just work with you on being able to present and the types of things to present as well. That's the type of elite advisor coaching that we run at Advice to Advisors. And if you've got an interest, if you've got a desire to grow, all great advisors, like every profession, use coaches that get help to take them farther and bigger. So I know we're almost out of time. Tina, do we have any questions whatsoever?
Yes, Dan, we do. And just on that, I just wanted to point out that I did put the information on our programs inside the chat. And
Great.
of course, if you have questions, just reach out to us and we'll get back to you with the information. So one
Absolutely.
of the first questions that came in earlier on was, what tool do you recommend I use for screening a new hire for my team? I'll take that one, Dan.
Yes.
I'll put my HR hat on here. So it sounds like you'd be looking for personality tests, or you're looking for a screening tool or an assessment. One of the ones that works great for teams is the Colby, which looks at it looks at natural talents, making sure that you have the right people in the right roles. So you can all do this assessment to see where you are fitting in with this team. So it's a great tool to use even now with your existing team. Although it can help with new hires as well, of course, but doing it on your team currently is a great idea as well. We used to use, in the last firm we were with, a self-management group. And that assessment is, you can have it for assistants, you have it for associates, you can have it for advisors. So again, that would be another way to assess somebody's skill set before they are onboarded with you. And one of the other ones, and Dan just mentioned it actually on the, I think 2 slides ago, you talked about the passion to pursue long-term goals. So that's Angela Duckworth's grit scale. I like the grit scale. It's very simple. I feel like there's 10 very simple
That's
questions.
right.
And, yeah, 10 simple questions, and it ranks you on a scale. Essentially, it's how gritty are you? When you're pursuing and you have passion for long-term goals. So having somebody on your team who is gritty and having a good number on that scale, that would be something that I would suggest.
Yeah, and that's where we see, especially on the advisor side, the grit. That's passion and perseverance for long-term goals. That, when we see a low grit scale, tends to be someone that's not ready to actually come in and grow a business. So if you're bringing on an associate advisor, a junior advisor, and you want them in the marketing and prospecting side of the business and they've got low grit, you've got a wrong fit. Having said that, grit can be grown. The science tells us how to grow grit, and it's great for everyone. And anybody that has children should probably read Angela Duckworth's book. She's out of the University of Pennsylvania, Grit. It is great because grit is learnable, and you can't go wrong training, teaching, helping your children grow with grit, just like we can't go wrong helping our team members where it's necessary, help them grow grit as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. And the last question we have 2 minutes for. This is a great question. Have you ever had an advisor that didn't succeed in your program?
In our pro, I take it you mean in our coaching,
I
and
assume that's what it means.
yeah, usually we hear, what does it take to succeed? Yes, sadly, absolutely. We've worked with a lot of financial advisors throughout North America, even in Brazil. And not everyone is as successful as they want to be. And the reality is this is a tough business. A lot of people get into this business wanting to make big dollars. Uh, Very few people go to school thinking, I'm going to become a financial advisor and I'm going to grow $1 billion. It just doesn't happen. Much like me, I fell into the business. Uh, but no, it doesn't work for everybody. You've got to have the capacity. First of all, you have to have a growth mindset. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be a student of the business. You have to be willing to do what the best of the best do. Here's the thing. We've got the roadmap. This isn't a secret of how to get here. It's just, will you do the work that it takes? And it takes a lot of work to get to that, a lot of work to get to the building. Now, you may get to the 100 million, 250, 500 million. You're making great revenue. You're taking care of a lot of people on a team. Having said that, well, $1 billion team, I've seen 4 members. That's the smallest team I know of that have reached a billion, 4 members. So a lot of work, but if you've got the right people and they're all doing the right tasks and they've all got the same vision, which is growth and excellence. You want to take care of your clients and you want to grow more clients like them. You want to make sure they are just exuberant about the services you provide. If you're that type of person, coaching will work. If you don't have a growth mindset, if you won't do the work that it takes, yeah, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Sadly, that's the reality. Well, it's not sad, it's just the reality.
Love that. All right, Dan. Well, that's all we have for time, and that's all the questions. So I'll hand it over to you to sign off.
Great. Thanks very much, Tina. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you got something out of that. It's fun to grow. That's all I can say. Like, without growth, what have we got? And those that grow tend to stay in the business longer because they want to stay in the business longer. Just at a friend's 70th birthday party, retirement party. And at the same time, I was talking to another advisor. She's 75, not retired yet. So you got to love the business, love what you do, love the people you work with, which is huge. Love the people you work with, build the great teams. If you build a great team, it's a lot easier to build a great business. So if you got any questions, as Tina said, reach out to us. If you're interested in the coaching, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Until next time, stay well, keep growing those big, beautiful businesses. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.